Our dad, Franklin Bud Frederick Bertram, was born on January 12, 1933. He was the 10th child of Franklin Bertram, but he was known to most people as Bud. As far as I can tell, I've asked around, we have no idea how he got that. You, Larry, know? All we can figure out with the name like Franklin Frederick, he probably thought by going by Bud would be a lot easier to write in school. But when I think of the name Bud, I think of Buddy, and that name fit him perfect because he was a buddy or a friend to anyone and every man he met. Dad went to school as far as a junior in high school, and during this time he met the love of his life, Faye Smith, in August 1950. After his junior year, he volunteered for the Army, became a paratrooper, and was in the Korean War. He was in the service from April 1953 to April 1955, and after being discharged, he went into farming with his dad and brothers. On April 8, 1956, he married our mom, Faye, at the Zion Lutheran Church here in Colome. They made their first home on a farm rented from Lowell Hawkins south of Colome. And in that year, in December, their first child, a son, Terry, was born. And Dad couldn't have been more proud to have a son. Terry was Dad's sidekick and right-hand man. A year later, their second child, also a son, was born, Dickie Eugene. But his sweet life was cut way too short, as 2 months into his life, he passed away due to fast pneumonia. At the end of the year of 1957, Mom, Dad, and Terry moved south of Dallas and lived there until 1968. During those years, 3 daughters were born into the family, Patty, Tammy, and Shelley. And then in January 1968, the family moved into their newly built home, which was the home that Dad was living in when he passed, along the Viaduct Road southwest of Dallas. And the neat thing about the home that it was one built by Mom, Dad, and Larry might have helped, and Dad's brothers and sisters. It was a cap home. It kind of came as a kit. And so they just put it together. They had a basement, and I remember seeing pictures of Harold and them helping build the house. With the new home came the arrival of their last child, me, in October 1968. And I like to tell myself, kind of like Gene did, that Mom and Dad kept having kids until they got the perfect child, so they could stop with me. But I really think Dad was trying for another son and just finally gave up. In 1978, Dad and Mom bought bee seeds in Colome from Ellen and Eva Bertram, and nothing made Dad more proud than being able to keep the seed business in the Bertram family. In the summer of 1987, Dad suffered from terrible headaches and never felt good. On the evening of August 18th, he collapsed at home. Mom called a neighbor and they got him to the Gregory Hospital. He was flown to Sioux Falls, where we had told he had a brain aneurysm and was brain dead. We all got to say our goodbyes to Dad before his short life at the very young age of 54 was over. Only 4 of his 14 grandchildren got the privilege of knowing their Grandpa Bertram, and none of his 14 great-grandchildren. But Dad's name is carried on in our family. Terry has a son, Franklin Rustin, he's here, and a granddaughter, Frankie Grace, and Patty has a son, Adam Franklin. This past August, we had our 3rd annual Bud Bertram family reunion. With our family getting so big, it's hard for all of us to get together at one time. So the first weekend of August, we put everything aside and just have lots of fun and reminiscing about our childhood days. It's a wonderful time to talk about our dad and let our kids know all the memories we have of him. Without a doubt, we know Dad would have loved these family get-togethers, but we also know he is always watching over us with a huge smile on his face and beaming with love and pride. So even though our dad is gone, he is never far from our thoughts and always in our hearts. I do have a couple things to say about Dad. As Dad, I think, as all the Bertrams, he was a neat freak. Mom ironed everything, but I think his underwear or socks, everything had to be a certain way. And when we get ready to go somewhere, you clean the vehicle before you went, and when you got home, you cleaned the vehicle. So it never had a chance to get dirty. And you might get home at midnight and the vehicle might be muddy, but we'd be out there hosing it off because we were not driving in the garage with mud to drop off. And one thing I don't remember, but the kids, my sisters are telling me that Dad, when we calved, nothing worse he hated more than losing a calf. And so if the calf was sick, cold, wet, it ended up in the house, in the bathtub by the heater. Well, this time he brought a calf in, which pretty much on his deathbed, but of course, you know, Mom and the kids had to keep it alive. Well, it wasn't long after Dad left, the calf died. So like nobody went to tell Dad the calf died. So they get the calf all dried up, prop it up, so it looks like it's alive. Dad comes in later and he's like, well, that son of a bitch did live. Granted, nobody wanted to tell Dad later that, you know, we were the ones that calf was dead. But and the other story about Dad was, if you knew him in Colome, he drove a red International pickup. To us, it was the most embarrassing thing. We called it the whoopee wagon. You didn't want to be seen in it. But, of course, Dad would be, once in a great while, pick us up from school. So you'd walk out of school, there he is, talking to everybody, the bus driver. You just want to go run in the pickup and hide. You were always glad because that meant you didn't have to ride the bus route, the hour bus route, but you also knew you were going home to work. And that meant dealing something with pigs. Well, when it came to pigs, you either were in the wrong spot at the wrong time. If you waved your arms, you shouldn't be. If you didn't wave them, you were standing there like a deadbeat. You couldn't do nothing wrong. Well, just about when you get the pigs to where they want, there'd be that one that would turn around. Well, you knew you were the only thing that was going to stop that pig from going out. You didn't have panels, you didn't have hot shots, you didn't have sticks. It was your body against the pig. Well, you knew it wasn't going to go, but when you see that pig coming at you, well, there went the pig. All right. Nothing worse. Dad's calling every name in the book, telling you to go to the house. Well, all of us kids tried that once. We all left once to go to the house. We knew then that's not what he meant, is go to the house. All except Tammy. She would keep going, and Dad knew, never asked Tammy again. But we knew he meant stay there. So after you got the pigs loaded, you know, we're all crying and whining. We go into the house to Mom. We're pouting. You know, Dad's bad. He's mean. He hates us. Dad come in for supper like, oh, what's wrong? You know, like we just had a good time blowing hugs. Well, we go to bed the next day. Sure enough, though, we get home from school, and there was always a check from the Gregory Livestock Auction on the dresser. So we'd forget about that time loading until the next time came in and start all over. You just never were in the right spot at the right time and could do it right. But. Okay.